platform fighter genre is one that I've become a fan of over the last few years, but there is a pretty consistent problem within this genre, that being that many platform fighters follow a similar formula pioneered by Super Smash Bros., the game that basically created this subgenre. That's not to say that all platform fighters play the same, because objectively that isn't the case. There are games that have tried doing something new within this genre, but they're either overlooked, forgotten by the general public, or simply put, weren't very good at implementing their gimmicks. However, there is one platform fighter that did catch the attention of many people thanks to its gimmick, that being the topic of today's video, Multiversus. Multiversus is a free-to-play platform fighter published by Warner Bros. And developed by Player First Games. What made this game so special compared to other platform fighters is that it focused mainly on 2v2 matches while also making it accessible to 1v1 or free-for-all matches. Even though it was on its beta state, I thought that Multiversus was a really great game. It was visually stunning, it took advantage of the fact that it was a crossover, and its gameplay, while a bit wonky at times, was generally the most fun I've had playing a fighting game. However, that isn't to say that the game didn't have its flaws. Its monetization system at times came off as scummy, the character balancing and hitboxes were inconsistent, and the marketing and publicity from WB's side of things were genuinely some of the worst I've seen a game do in a very long time. You might think that last part might come off as nitpicky, but you have to remember that this is a free-to-play game. And in a time where there are multiple free-to-play games that will do anything to get your attention, staying quiet is pretty much a recipe for failure, and for a good couple months, that was exactly the case. Multiversus went from having 150,000 people playing worldwide at the same time within its first month, to barely cracking 1,000 people playing on Steam 3 months later. Even after winning Best Fighting Game in the Game Awards, as time went along, the general public started disliking the game more and more. But then the game suddenly shut down. On March 27th, 2023, Multiversus announced that the game will be closing its open beta and taking a year-long hiatus, while also confirming that the game will return in early 2024. This decision was bold because on one hand, you'll have a bunch of people thinking that the game will silently shut down and that WB ran away with all the money that they got from the open beta, but on the other hand, it gives them more time to properly work on the game and iron out the many mistakes present within the open beta. And after a year-and-a-half long hiatus, Multiversus has finally been released to the public on May 28th, 2024, bringing along a new game engine, a new game mode, new characters, and plenty of new surprises. The current public perception of the relaunch seems to be rather mixed. While there are a handful of people that really enjoy it, others think that it's a downgrade from the beta. But the question is though, is it really worth returning to Multiversus after all this time? Well, that's what I'll be talking about in today's video, so with that said, let's get to it. Let's start things out with something you'll notice right away. The visuals have gotten a significant overhaul in both characters, stages, and overall UI. Tony Hune, the game's director of Multiversus, mentioned that during the hiatus, they switched the game's engine to Unreal Engine 4 to Unreal Engine 5, and I think the characters and stages have never looked better. I was already a fan of how the game looked before, but comparing the beta's visuals to now, you can really tell the amount of effort they put in redesigning everything, and I think that's especially prominent when it comes to the new characters and stages. I'll go more into detail about them later, but I just have to say that the new characters and stages have so much charm and personality to them. That's not to say that all the visuals received an upgrade, because I'm not that big of a fan of the new UI they have on the relaunch. The beta's UI looks really unique, stylish, and has a personality that made it stand out from other free-to-play games at the time. The new UI and menus, on the other hand, look so soulless. It's like a combination of the Overwatch 2 menu and the old Fortnite menu. And the new character icons look really ugly. I don't know if it's a problem with the lighting or the fact that they switched to being 3D, but these are just a huge downgrade to the beautiful 2D artwork from the original icons. One of the primary things they focused on within this relaunch was the netcode. If you don't know what that is, it's basically networking connection for online games, and the public consensus was the fact that the beta's netcode was pretty bad. So with the relaunch, they basically built a new netcode from the ground up with the goal of making it the best gaming experience for the players. Personally, I didn't have that many issues with the connection during the beta, but I do know a lot of people genuinely hated it, so I'm happy to say that the netcode feels better. While there is still some lag to the game, it doesn't feel as extreme as it did in the beta. Although for the first couple of days, I have had issues where the game just buffers or just crashes midway through a match. So while it may not be the best, at least it's better than what we've had. Except if you're an Xbox player, in that case, it'll probably take a while for you to play the game properly. Though that's probably going to be the least of your issues, because now we go to the gameplay. This is by far the aspect that has changed the most about the game, and by far the aspect that has been the most divisive. So let's start with the positives. First, they added some much needed moves and aspects from other platform fighters such as parrying and dash attacks, all of which are pretty simple to use and change the meta of the game pretty significantly. Another thing to note is that the support class is completely gone. The characters from that class have now been changed to mages, with the exception being Steven, who got classified as a tank. For whatever reason. The support class was never really my favorite, so seeing it removed from the game isn't exactly gonna put me to tears or anything. You could also probably tell that the characters have gotten bigger in size. This was done because, quote, "We think it's very important to be able to quickly react to what your opponents are up to, and having larger characters really leads to improved reability." This was a change I wasn't really sure of at first, but as time has passed, it's a change that I've really come to appreciate. There's also a change with the dodge mechanic, where if you dodge too often, it will go on a cooldown phase, where you can still use it for mobility, but you're at the risk of getting hit. This is a really welcoming change because there were times in the beta where it basically felt like the opponent was dodging 90% of the match without any repercussions. And the combat overall still feels fun and fluent as it did before, with a slight improvement with the precision here and there. So far, things with the gameplay seem to be going fine. So what's stopping it from being really great? Well, it all boils down to 3 issues. Issue number 1, the combat movement is really slow. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and exaggerate like people have been doing on Twitter saying that this combat is slower than Smash Bros. Ganondorf, because when you play the game yourself, it does feel somewhat fast. But compared to the movement of the beta, which was twice as fast, it really does feel like a snail's pace at times. The combat speed in the beta, at least to me, honestly felt like the perfect speed for a game like this, but I get that it can be overwhelming to some. The speed in the game right now doesn't feel as snappy as it should. This change is especially prevalent when you look at characters like Bugs or Gizmo, who realistically should move faster, but they feel like they have the same speed as a tank class fighter. So hopefully in the future they can reach a middle ground where the combat speed can be both fast while also managing to be clear enough so you can see the attacks better. Issue number 2, Jesus Christ, the camera likes to zoom in a lot. This was another change done for the sake of visual clarity, but unlike the character sizes, which feels like a needed change, the camera zooms ins are just really annoying to deal with. In 1v1s, this change doesn't feel noticeable, but in 2v2s, it becomes a genuine problem. In theory, the camera zooming in isn't a bad idea, but the execution, as of now at the very least, feels super forced. And finally, issue number 3, the attack decay. Or is it? One of my favorite additions to the gameplay within the Multiversus beta has to be the attack decay. It's basically a mechanic that stops you from spamming the same move over and over again, with each attack you spam getting weaker and weaker the more you use it. To me, it feels like a mechanic that most platform fighters should add because it makes the player try new attacks and combo opportunities. In the relaunch, however, the attack decay is just gone, reduced to atoms. Or in this case, reduced to code, I guess. As of right now, there hasn't been a reason stated to why the attack decay mechanic got removed, but they seriously need to bring it back. This would be the part where I would explain myself, but I think this clip speaks for itself. But let's get into the topic most of you are probably curious to hear about, the new faces that were brought to the roster. The first character introduced is the Joker, who was probably the best / safest pick they could have picked for the face of the relaunch. I mean, this is the Joker, the most iconic comic book villain ever, and having Mark Hamill, arguably the most recognizable Joker voice actor ever, come back to reprise his role one last time was a recipe to generate some hype. But on the other hand, this feels like a character that already should have been in the game. Like, are you gonna sit there and tell me that Warner Bros. Is making a fighting game including DC characters and they weren't gonna put the Joker in it? Either way, here he is, and he's a really fun character. Joker's entire gimmick is pretty much throwing shit at you and making it as chaotic as possible, and it translates really well to his moveset. He has his usual deck of cards, crowbars, balloons, joy buzzers, and a bunch of other shit you expect from the Joker to have. Out of all the new characters, Joker is definitely the most well-rounded and most solid character in every aspect. He's balanced pretty well, his animations are incredible, his moveset is chaotic. He's just a really great character all around. I wouldn't say he's my favorite new character to play as, but he's definitely my top 5 favorite characters in the game. Next up, we got the Banana Guard from Adventure Time.
Banana Guard made the cut.
Now, of all the new characters in the relaunch, to say that Banana Guard was the most controversial would be more than an understatement. This stupid goober got leaked and people started thinking that player first games used him to avoid any other characters from getting leaked, but nope, he's in the game, and on one hand, I could definitely see why people are angry. The game was in a state where people were very critical towards it, so having a background character instead of the multiple other Adventure Time characters that should have been added first seemed seems like a genuine fumble on PFG's end. But on the other hand, this pick was so baffling and ridiculous that it's honestly amazing. In fact, he was probably the character I was excited the most for. And after trying him out, while he is a really fun character, he's definitely my least favorite newcomer within the relaunch. The best way to describe Banana Guard's gameplay is that he pretty much feels like a combination of Shaggy with the occasional goofy attacks, and what Bandana Waddle Dee would feel like if he ever got added to Smash Bros, with a lot of attacks focusing on his spear. For what he is, I think he's fine? I don't know, at least to me he feels like a really basic character, which was probably the intent, but there could have been more goofy and unique stuff they could have done. Have him call out for other Banana Guards, make him summon Candy Citizens. The potential for a unique moveset is there, but they didn't do much with it. I still like Banana Guard, don't get me wrong, but he's definitely the weakest newcomer in the game. Okay, so right now our newcomers consist of the safest pick known to mankind and the dumbest pick known to mankind. I mean, I'm liking what we have so far, but we need something that's really gotta pique the people's interest. Okay, that will do. Jason Voorhees is one of my favorite horror movie characters of all time. While I don't think his movies are anything outside of dumb fun, he has a really interesting backstory and his design is just really sick. So when he was revealed to be in Multiversus, let's just say that I was incredibly excited to try him out, and color me surprised, not only is he one of my favorite newcomers in the game, but he's also one of my new mains. He's the perfect combination of peak character designs and an incredible moveset that's both fun and filled with references to the Friday the 13th franchise. I'm not normally the type of person that likes to play as grapplers in fighting games, but they managed to make Jason's grab attacks really engaging and snappy. The only complaint I have with his character right now has to be his movement speed. I know Jason is built like an entire fridge in this game, but there's no reason for him to move as slow as Iron Giant. That aside, I'm just incredibly happy that they did my boy justice. Here's to hoping that he doesn't end up like he did in Mortal Kombat X. Those were all the characters that released in the relaunch. Honestly, a really great cast of characters we have here. In terms of any other characters dropping before launch, we do know that Agent Smith from The Matrix is coming to the game, and you'll be unlocking him by doing Rift Mode challenges, which sounds fine at first, but in the way the game is structured at the moment, the way to get him is just really grindy. And considering that they have their own stages, I wouldn't be surprised if the Powerpuff Girls or Dexter got in the game as characters at some point. Actually, while on the topic of such, let's get to talking about the game modes. Obviously 1v1s and 2v2s make a return. Free-for-all hasn't returned as a mode, but I'm sure it's gonna make a return in one of its sooner patches. Same with ranked mode and bot matches, which at the time of me recording this video hasn't been made available. Then we have local mode, training mode, and of course, the arcade mode. Oh, it's gone. Well, kinda. Because in its place, we have the newly introduced Rift mode. This serves as not only the replacement for the arcade mode, but also as a pseudo story mode of sorts, with each Rift being a part of a continuing story, filled with regular matches, mini games, and even boss battles. In other words, we got a PvE mode in Multiversus before Overwatch, and that to me is really funny. With that said, yeah, Rift mode is pretty alright. Genuinely, it's a huge upgrade from the bare bones arcade mode from the beta, but my main issue with the mode right now has to be the challenges within Rift mode because they feel too grindy or almost too pay to win. Also, for some reason, every mission has a co-op challenge, which could have been perfect for a couch co-op option, which isn't there. Honestly, outside of local play, Multiversus could really benefit from more offline multiplayer options, and Rift mode could have been a great way to introduce that. So hopefully in the future, more couch co-op stuff gets added to the game. But yeah, Rift mode is a nice little distraction, but it does contain some flaws. Alright, it's been long enough. Let's talk about the monetization. I've made it pretty clear on this channel before that I don't like how modern games handle monetization, especially when it contains battle passes, because many times they can range from being extremely harmless to downright predatory at times. Multiversus was doomed to contain a battle pass and purchasable currency because, well, it's a free-to-play game, and the way it handled its monetization within the open beta wasn't entirely that bad. At least in the beginning. Way back in the alpha, progression felt a lot simpler, less grindy, and overall much more rewarding. Then in the middle of the open beta, they decided, hey, let's make the game more grindy and let's give people little to no XP and coins so they barely move in the battle pass. Because that's super fun!
What is this shit? What's going on? Why don't they like it? We spent $250 million on this!
Couple that with the fact that Gleanium wasn't included in the battle pass either, and the fact that some of the prices for the cosmetics were ridiculously pricey, it became clear that WB wanted to capitalize on the initial success of Multiversus as much as they could. Now the question is, has the monetization gotten better with the re-release? sorta, I guess. To address the elephant in the room first, the Battle Pass. It was absolutely garbage in the beta. Putting aside the few somewhat nice looking cosmetics aside, it really wasn't worth dealing with the grind. In the relaunch, it is far better than it was before, containing Gleanum within the Battle Pass this time around, while containing more skins, ring out, icons, and banners. Something that I genuinely appreciate was the fact that if you're a returning beta player, you're able to get the premium Battle Pass for this season for free, which also includes yeah, let's just hope including characters in the Battle Pass this is a one-time deal for now, because I really don't want this to become an Overwatch 2 type of thing. Speaking of Gleanum, it becomes easier to get it without paying real money for it, and the way you get it is basically grinding your favorite character to level 15. Hey, I didn't say it's better, I said it's easier. Coins are gone and are now replaced with prestige tokens, which are tokens you get by getting cosmetics, either by earning them or buying them. Which doesn't sound bad at first, but a lot of the items that are worth tokens are worth a lot of tokens. And you really don't get that many tokens in return when you get items. And finally, there's okay, what's the point of having 3 different currencies? Like, really, the way gold worked back in the day was fine and cost efficient. This is just overly complicated stuff for no reason. It feels like a mobile game where there's the currency that costs money and the other 2 currencies that you'll eventually have to use the first currency for. Obviously has WB spelled all over it, trying their absolute hardest to try and capitalize on the success of Multiversus again, but ultimately hurting the game in the process. The monetization within the Multiversus relaunch, while better than it was before, still contains a lot of problems that could be fixed, but will hurt the game in the long run. And that right there is the best way I could explain this relaunch. Objectively, there are things this relaunch does so much better compared to the beta, and at the end of the day, this is still the game I fell in love with in the first place. But as of now, there's a huge amount of issues that hold the game back, some of which I haven't even mentioned in this video. Thankfully, Player First Games is aware of these issues and are looking to fix them as soon as they can, which is always a good sign. Even if I came off as negative for most of this video, I still think you should give this game a try, whether you're someone who played the beta or a new player trying the game for the first time. I love this game a lot, I know this game has the possibility to last a long time, and I know the team behind Player First Games has a ton of passion and love towards this project. But at the moment, it seems like they might fall back into the trap they did 2 years ago. It's uncertain what the future holds for this game, but to the team behind Player First Games, I wish you guys nothing but the best of luck with your endeavors with this game. And to WB, please, don't fuck it up again. Anyways, this has been Manuel D, and I'm going back to the dungeon I call a room to work on a video that was supposed to drop in January. See you guys in 6 months!